Hello, friends. Welcome to rather spontaneous Word of God Spirit Contact here on this lovely sunny but still quite cool March weekend in southern Ontario. So about +2, but we're thrilled not to have any snow. And this morning, about an hour or so ago, I was having a coffee after doing some groceries, sitting in my local supermarket, and going through my emails and whatnot, and I noticed a post from my friend David Pierce in Colorado, and we often exchange messages on afterlife and reincarnation and all that sort of a thing. Known him for years, and when he recommends a book, I usually take notice, and he made a quick recommendation on Goodreads of Whitley and Ann Strieber's new book, The Afterlife Revolution, which seems to have been out for a few months. It's now, March 2018, sometime in 2017, and it concerns the communication between the recently deceased Ann Strieber, Whitley's lifelong companion, and some mediums and himself, and I was quite intrigued, and for two reasons. When my first book, Eternal Life and How to Enjoy It, came out, Ann Strieber asked to interview me on her, I think it was called the Dreamland show that they have, the two of them have. Whitley dealt with some subjects and she dealt with others. And she was intrigued with my book because she'd had a near-death experience a couple of years before, and my book seemed to flesh out the glimpses that she had of the afterlife. And we had a very good conversation, very communicative and enjoyable, happy. And it was one of my earliest internet interviews. And would have kept it had I had the technical know-how to do so. I didn't at the time. I didn't know you could do stuff like that. It would be wonderful to hear it again now. And I know it's not on their archive. I haven't seen it there. But so as I'm reading all this, I'm looking, go to the Amazon listing, I'm looking at Gary Schwartz's introduction to this book, The Afterlife Revolution, and I can suddenly hear Anne chattering away to me. And I said, "Oh, Anne, I hadn't thought of you in ages until I saw this book. I didn't even know you died," which I didn't. She died in 2015, wherever this was announced. I didn't catch on to it. And she basically, I was surprised. I said, "Anne, I only found out about this because somebody, emailed me this morning. The book's been out for ages." And she said, "Well, I come by and visit you once in a while. I've been trying to communicate with you for a while, and you haven't been paying any conscious attention. So I hope that this interaction with the internet version of the book would, capture you for a couple of seconds so I could get through to you." And I said, "Okay, Anne, I apologize. And, I'm not as conscious as I could be. And, but that's the karma of being a medium without perfect abilities." So anyway, she was full of the joys of life, as people who have been in the afterlife are, unless they're stuck in the lower astral, which she is most definitely not. She knew exactly where to go when she passed, and because of her near-death experience and the reading that she had done, wasn't held back by anything. And of course, her love for Whitley is no question. In this regard, before I noticed in the introduction to the book a great quote about, this is from Anne, "Enlightenment happens when you realize that there's nothing but love, or there's nothing left but love." And I thought, oh, nice one there, Anne. So anyway, so I can feel her in my head, and I've apologized for not paying greater attention, and she's sort of dancing around in inner space, very happy, very, very happy, very much like, at least in those moments, I can't say for her entire existence in the afterlife, very much like, a young teenage girl, maybe back from her ballet class or dancing class, and you can see them, sometimes they're walking along with their parents and they're dancing around. They're so full of the joys of life. a bit like that. Although she didn't look like a 12-year-old girl. She looked like a radiantly beautiful young woman, mid-20s, I would say. And of course, she's done all the book tells you all about the evidential stuff, which of course people like Gary Schwartz just gobble up. The author of the Afterlife Experiments, etc., etc. And, you know, evidential spiritualism, communicating with spirits where they give you evidence, is very important to people that still have doubts. It's not important to me because I haven't had doubts in decades. And it's just, there's skepticism, there's ignorance, there's denial, and then as people move into a desire to discover and expand, like Gary Schwartz, and many, many others, of course, there's a searching through the communications for evidence which will hopefully prove to them that their doubts are unfounded. And, people are on a journey through their doubt. And eventually it comes to, I think it's come to an end for Whitley. I know he was very interested in afterlife stuff and praised my book greatly in the day, which 2005, I would guess, around then. And I think he said on the show it was one of the best books on the afterlife he'd ever read, most realistic. And Anne certainly felt the same way. And as a first-time author, I was very, very pleased to have praise from people much more established in the, well, of course Whitley's more established in the alien out-of-body experience stuff, and I'd read most of his books at that point. But Anne was something of a newcomer, but it was a great thing for me in my book. Great thing. I got a lot of emails, people sort of asking me to justify myself afterwards, and prove. And I said I'm not into proof. I'm into the big experience. I'm into embracing the whole thing. Embrace all of the afterlife in all its levels and all its manifestations, not just where your loved ones have gone. Because where your loved ones have gone is only one place out of many. It's like having your son and daughter go to university in Tokyo or Paris, or and you take a great interest in those cities, but not all the cultures in between. Obviously, there's a time factor there. I realize that, but it's the same with the afterlife. I embrace the whole thing, and all my books are about the whole thing in all its detail and in all its myriad manifestations. And it's a long time since I've been interested in evidential spiritualism. So if you think, well, what proof has he got this was Anne Strieber? I haven't got any. I've got the joy of her communication. I've got my sudden, oh my God, she's there, and how come I never noticed before? And me saying, listen, can I do this in the car later? And I can't do this sitting in Fortino's here, sipping my coffee with people next to me reading the weekend paper. I can't be nattering onto you. They'll phone the police and have me taken away. And you can't blame them. So here I am in the car by the lake, where I've done other videos, and I don't think you can see the lake too well. It's right behind me, but there's too much bright sunshine. I might nip out in a minute and give you a view. But so what's that? What was Anne saying? And now she's back. Gordon, you are finally, because then I started to download the book from Amazon, and it took a while, and they didn't get my password right, and all this stuff. And she's like, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? So anyway, the first point when I was being a little slow, I said, oh, sorry about this, Anne. I didn't know this was going to take so long. And she says, it's okay, I'm dancing. She was sort of dancing midair, twirling about, a mixture of sort of, ballroom dancing on your own and sort of modern ballet with all kinds of interesting moves. And I didn't know she's into dancing. But people get into stuff when they're in the afterlife because there's a lack of gravity. You can whip around all over the place. You can fly, as you probably know. And you can dematerialize and rematerialize somewhere else. There's all sorts of interesting things you can do that you only dream about here. And of course, we all do dream about flying, don't we? So, and saying, Gordon, the afterlife's everything that you said it would be. And I want to thank you so much for alerting me to that and convincing me all those years ago. Because in my time of suffering, where Whitley was the most kind and caring partner one could possibly wish to have, I believe she had a brain tumor or something. Your descriptions, your powerful descriptions, recurred to me. And I would think about them and think, well, if I'm suffering this much, you know, there's a reward at the end of the line. And sure, God love us, there was a reward. By the way, that God love us, that's me talking. I don't think Anne would say that. That's me getting a little excited. But she is enthusiastic and happy, no question about that. And I'm telling Anne, and it's an interesting day to us to be communicating, because I just heard on the radio here in Toronto, we're having a march in support of the marches in the States about children dying in school shootings and remembering them. And it seems to be working into a worldwide movement. So it's an interesting day for you to be calling, or, you know, us communicating. And she's saying, yes, Gordon, I know about these things. I keep in touch with things in America and in the world. And, you know, we in Spirit do feel this, and we encourage people to, you know, go along this path and not be afraid to change things or to try and change things. And, okay, Anne, I understand. And this is me speaking, not Anne. Understand that some of these young people that have died in school shootings are, in fact, not all of them. I'm not saying it's all, but some are people who have come back from being soldiers who have killed in wars, including Vietnam and Korea and World War II, and wish to have the karma of dying young. I'm not saying they all are, and I'm not saying even any of them are conscious of this, but it is something to understand that even things that are perceived in society to be wrong and unjust and unfair and horrible do help with the completion of karma. And I mean, let's face it, wars have been going on forever. And but I think most of you who are watching this can understand the basic understanding of karma. And by pointing this out, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't change things, or that it's right, or it's anything. We should change things, but understand that some of them are here for karmic completion. They had decided to do this, and of course one does not always know when one incarnates if that shooting is going to actually pan out, because the perpetrators, and I'm not just talking about the guy in Parkland, the others as well, don't always do what they plan to do. They back out at the last minute. Their spirit guides talk them out of it, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of variation here. Anyway, Anne wants me to convey to you all without any evidence, and because she knows I don't deal in evidence, others do, and I think she's probably been communicating through other mediums that do deal in evidence, which is fine. But there's room for all kinds of mediumship in this world of spirit communication. And what I do is give the big picture. And the big picture is, according to Anne, so much to do and so much fun doing it. That's a good one, Anne. I like that. I like that a lot. She's saying people that have read your books, Gordon, and watch your videos know about this, but she's saying I'm communicating this to the few people that are going to be attracted to this, because Anne Strieber is going to be on the name, the title of your video. And I agree, there'll be people that have just come to this because it's Anne Strieber and won't know anything about Gord or the Word of Gord or my books or anything. So for those of you who are new to this, please understand that Anne is very happy, very fulfilled, and having a great time in the afterlife. I mean, really good. Never a dull moment. And when she wants to be with Whitley, she can be with him, and which is often. And other friends and family members. Understand that for the deceased who are at peace and in harmony with their new lives, traveling down to earth, back to earth, and being with their loved ones is not a problem. It is not a problem. It is a problem if you don't go to the afterlife initially when you die and get settled there. If you stick around the earth for whatever reason, anger, attachment, ignorance, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, And for example, in one of James Van Praag's books, where he goes into give a talk in a room in a casino, he has to walk through this room with slot machines, and he was shocked at how many dead gamblers were there, hanging out and hanging on to their addiction. Just to give you one example outside of my experience. But understand, many earthbound spirits are stuck here for those reasons and don't go on. And they get stuck, and they're like, you know, they're slow, they're depressed, they don't move very much, and when they do, they don't know quite what they want to do other than to be at the source of their addictions, and interact and get into the bodies of people that are doing drugs or having lustful sex or gambling or whatever. And but those who move on and get into the afterlife and get settled and give up their attachments, which most people do, can come back to earth and interact with their loved ones anytime they want. So understand that. And Anne, thank you for this communication. It's been a great buzz, just marvelous stuff. And she said, thank you, Gord, for giving me this pointer so many years ago and confirming my suspicions from my own near-death experience. It really meant a lot to me, and I always wanted to come back and thank you. And well, Anne, I'll certainly be coming to see you, you know, when I'm asleep. No question about that. Now that I know you're dead, because let's face it, people die all the time. I was just talking to the famous British scientist that died earlier this week, and that was an interesting challenge. He was not anywhere near where you are because he was an atheist. And he has to go through a bit of the karma of that and live in a relative bit of darkness for a while until he overcomes that. But anyway, you are one of the happy ones, and I'm trying very much to communicate that happiness to those who miss you and feel sorry for Whitley and wish you all the best, as I'm sure many do, because your radio show was quite popular. And so with that, thank you, Anne, and I'll try and get the camera out here and see if we can have a look at the sea in the water in the lake, for those of you who don't live by a lake. Very bright, of course. So, can you hear the yeah, the gulls? Yeah, you can hear the gulls. Turning around here. Look at those sparkles. Listen to those gulls. What joy. What joy. And to think just an hour or so ago, people were down on University Avenue here in Toronto, standing in front of the American Embassy, silently remembering the 17 dead from Parkland. The world is a compassionate place. It is full of love. As Anne says, enlightenment happens when you realize there's nothing else but love. Thank you, Anne. Okay, friends, bye for now.